Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome to Stock Market Today. Alyssa Corum and Justin Nielsen here with a breakdown of the action that we saw in today's session. It was a mixed day, but Justin, the Nasdaq very clearly in the driver's seat. And you're on mute.
Gosh, I knew that was going to happen to me eventually. So yeah, we have been talking about the Russell 2000 and how strong it's been, getting back above its 50-day moving average line after getting supported its 200-day moving average line. But it was all about the Nasdaq today. A lot of those big tech leaders really looking strong. The heavyweights, the $1 trillion club, those were all moving very nicely.
Yeah, so speaking of that, we'll be taking a look at Apple today, also PayPal, and a long-term leader, Idexx Laboratories, which was one of our stocks of the day last week. So we'll get more into that. But first, checking in on the major indexes, just look at the strength that we are seeing out of the Nasdaq. So many up days in a row, just one down day breaking up this huge advance, Justin. Today, the Nasdaq adding 0.9%. The S&P also higher on the day, up about 0.4%. And on the downside, we did see the Dow down about 0.2%, and the Russell 2000, as you mentioned, a little bit of weakness today, down about 0.5%, but very evident that technology is driving the gains in the market over the last week or so.
Yeah, and the big thing here is, again, we're still in this environment where the buy on the dip mentality is strong. Anytime you get the index pulling back a little bit, and those pullbacks are very minor. I mean, we haven't seen a 5% correction in the S&P 500 for over 200 days. Again, the longest period that we had prior to this was in 2017, where we went a whole 400 days without that 5% correction from close to close. So again, we're still in that kind of environment, but I certainly do feel like it's been a little bit different lately. I'm seeing more gains in my portfolio after having traded in a range for, it seemed like forever, just months and months of, making progress, giving it back, making progress, giving it back. And you can take a look at FFTY,
exactly,
which kind of shows that, hey, growth is coming back. It's not just a few stocks that are driving it up. We've got 50 stocks in that IBD 50. And so there's a lot more participation of growth, and you're seeing that relative strength line start to spike up after it's had a lot of downtime here over the last few months, while the S&P 500 and some of these rotation plays were where it was at.
And taking a look at QQQ, just to do a check on, are we extended? And we're about 4.7% above the 50-day line. So could we still have a little bit more room to the upside here before we're in pullback caution mode?
Yeah, this isn't in the area where we start to sweat it and get nervous. But that being said, the setups are drying up a little bit. You're not getting those easy layups. You're not getting those bounces off the 50-day moving average line as much. So there are a lot of the stocks that are looking extended. So it's really one of those things where you don't want to be chasing them, because the time to be buying was the last couple weeks. And I mean, last week was strong. I mean, if you just go to the Qs and look at the weekly chart, that really sticks out. That was a big move last week, and it's following up on it today. Hey, that's a great thing. But it does mean that sometimes the pickings are a little bit slimmer as these stocks have gotten extended. So it's in some cases a matter of holding what you've got for a little bit longer until we potentially get that next pullback.
And don't chase. We got to remind people, you don't want to be chasing those stocks. You got to buy right. Well, let's take a look at some of the setups that we saw today. Apple, a notable mover in the session, up about 3% for the day, clearing the 150 price level. So some strong action from one of the biggest companies out there.
Yeah, so I mean, you talk about your $1 trillion club. This is in the $2.5 trillion club. It's just again, the first trillion is always the hardest. Right. But it's one of those things where you've got the potential new iPhones coming out. And one thing I have to say, I do have a position in Apple, and I'm surprised that I lasted this long, because it just seemed like it wasn't participating. It was just kind of dilly-dallying around while a lot of the other big caps were doing very well in tech, driving the Nasdaq higher. Yeah, so I bought it right there, right, exactly. And so, I weathered the storm with that, and I actually added a little bit. But it's now this is looking much stronger. It's looking like things are picking up for it. There was some news out that there was a potential partnership with satellite for the iPhone 13 to potentially have satellite calling as they were partnering with Globalstar. So that's one thing that might have been driving it. Certainly was driving Globalstar up quite a bit. That's GSAT. So there's that excitement that always happens around the iPhone launches, and we'll see if this can continue, because it's definitely in that area, the big cap tech, which is really driving that Nasdaq forward. So it's just a matter of Apple just joining the party.
Right. And in terms of your initial buy, there's a difference between buying it on this trend line breakout here and then a couple days later, maybe that intraday move below the 21-day line might have shaken you out, but trying to buy as close to a moving average, whether it's the 21-day or the 50-day line, can help keep you in a stock and help you weather that storm a bit
Yeah,
better.
and with Apple, that's one that I might give a little bit more room, and so I was waiting for that close below that entry low, and it did get close when it ventured below that level, but it ended up closing above it on that day that you're mentioning, where it just kind of poked its bottom down there, and so that's what allowed me to hold on to it. And again, with Apple, I'm less concerned about maybe one of these more volatile IPOs where it's going to just potentially tank. Apple, that stock's not going anywhere. But as we saw with Amazon, you can still have 7% drops like with earnings and things like that. So there's no such thing as a safe stock.
Yeah. And with Apple, also notable today, the volume, it was above average. So further another good sign of strength there today for the stock. And what about the strength today for PayPal, Justin? Some volume behind the move here today as well, with shares gaining 3.6%, and a news related catalyst here for PayPal as well. In the early going, while we were on IBD Live, it had, of course, cleared this bit of resistance here from the last couple of trading sessions, but really kicked it into high gear on news that it is exploring a stock trading app.
Yes, exactly. So Square already has the Cash App that does offer stock trading. PayPal is just, kind of, hey, we can do that too. And of course, there's a lot of offerings that PayPal and Square have gotten into in terms of whether it's the crypto, the buy now, pay later. There was news in the group with Affirm, AFRM, that was having a partnership with Amazon. They, were also up a huge amount. So you've got, PayPal is definitely one of those long-term leader type stocks. So the fact that it's been kind of below its 50-day moving average line isn't necessarily something that disqualifies you from holding it. If you go to that, you see that the earning stability here is 3, and the EPS growth rate is 26. That's pretty robust. It's got a lot of growth here. And this is one that, it got contained by that 40-week moving average line, the black line on your chart. It was trading below the 50-day moving average line and 10-week line, the red line, for a while, but now it's making that move above. I will say that it was a little disheartening to see that drop happen after earnings. That was a 10% drop that week. And but it really stopped after that. It stopped, it kind of held. And even though it was trading below the 50-day moving average line, now it's only been a few weeks and it's right back above there. So we'll see if it can kind of gain some strength. A lot of times we talk about these long-term leaders as a time to buy is generally on these pullbacks rather than buying extended. So this might be one of those opportunities to get a position in PayPal or add to one if you have one already.
And fellow long-term leader IDEX Labs, IDXX, clearing a trend line today after a pullback to its 50-day and 10-week lines. And so it gained almost 3% today, Justin, in above average turnover. So buying opportunity here after we wrote about it in our Stock of the Day column last week.
Right. And so this is, we wrote about it in the Stock of the Day. You also had Ed covering it in the Stock Market Today video. So, when you see some of these things where we're covering it in multiple places or it's showing up on multiple screens, that should be telling you something. It's usually the strength of the stock or the setup that is really kind of jumping out at us. And so I just wanted to kind of revisit it. Aparna had a great story on PayPal, so definitely look at that. Allison had a great story on IDEX last week. It was stock of the day. And I love the fact that she used the term diagnostics because this is in the veterinary medicine field. So that was very well done on her part. But you've got this pullback, and a lot of what we've been seeing is not so much that the stocks have fallen to their 50-day moving average line or their 10-week lines, but they've flattened out and let those lines catch up to them. And that's a great thing. That's when you get more of those flat bases, and your risk just tends to be much smaller for a lot of those stocks because you're going to know pretty quickly if it's not doing what you expected, and you can quickly back away without getting hurt very much. And like PayPal, one of the things that really sticks out, if you go to the weekly chart on this, you'll see that this has another great earning stability, very low at 4. That means the lower the better in terms of stability. That's a 1 to 99. And it also has a 26% growth rate, which again is phenomenal for it to have that kind of growth rate annually, year after year, and still have that stability. And you can kind of see that in the monthly chart where this is a stock that has, a lot of people might be thinking, oh, well, that's kind of boring, veterinary medicine, it's not that exciting. But look at this performance that it's had on the monthly chart. It might seem slow at times, but over time, this is the kind of thing that can really add to your portfolio.
Yes, so worth highlighting here. It has a lot of the qualities that we like to see. So Justin, thanks again for featuring it and following up on last week's discussion with the notable move that IDEX made today. And thank you all for tuning in. We will be back with more tomorrow morning on IABD Live, where we are joined by David Ryan for another great session and a selling lesson for you. So we're looking forward to a Dr. or Professor Ryan coming to the show. And we hope you join us, investors.com/IABD Live. That's your daily morning live stream where we're sharing our screens, talking about actionable trade ideas and educational lessons that you can take with you beyond the live stream. So we hope you join us. And we'll see you there, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow after the close.